Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at RSA 2023. Terry Sweeney here with Dark Reading, and joining us now is Patrick McBride, CMO of Beyond Identity. Patrick, thanks for joining us on the news desk today.
Thanks for having me.
We are talking about why zero trust authentication matters. What's wrong with existing technologies? They've worked so well for us for years?
Or not so much.
Or not right? so much.
I love my password, said nobody ever, especially when we have hundreds of them now. But more importantly than that, they're just a completely failed authentication method. They appear at the top of the list every year in the Verizon Data Breach Report. It's the initial attack vector for bad guys. And so, that's the existing auth really was founded on passwords and shared secrets. And if I had a password problem, then kind of the next thing was, well, I'll just implement MFA, right? Multi-factor authentications and do multiple factors. And really the first generation of that it doesn't help much anymore, unfortunately. It's barely a speed bump. Well,
it's always a frightening browse when I open that part of my iPhone that shows me all my compromised passwords. It's a very sobering experience.
Yeah, people make the mistake of thinking that you end up having, if you have the long, strong passwords, you're fine. And that belies actually how attackers go at them. They don't steal them when they're encrypted. They don't have to crack passwords. If that was the case, then a longer, stronger passwords, 15 characters, numbers and letters would help. But now that's the way they steal them is when they're in the clear. They'll either get them as they traverse a network or on the endpoint, or buy them, literally buy them and log in. There's billions of passwords for sale, credentials for sale on the underground.
Well, as you gaze out across the security horizon, what sorts of technological advancements do you see that will make a difference here?
I think the first step is what we're finally seeing, because it was many years ago Bill Gates came to RSA and declared the death of the password. That's I don't know, 15, 18 years ago now, and unfortunately we're still there. But we really are on the cusp of things. FIDO has developed a standard, the Fast Identity Online team has developed a standard for passwordless that uses a cryptographic technique. They call it passkeys. So that gives you one really solid factor. And if you combine that with things like biometrics, fingerprint, face print types of things, you end up having two really strong factors that you can use. So I think the first step is clients are really actually going now. They didn't, as we started selling in the market, it was a little bit early in the last couple of years, but they're funded passwordless projects now, and they're funded projects to replace the existing kind of weak MFA that they have.
Shifting gears slightly, artificial intelligence is on everybody's mind these days, and certainly a subject of lots of conversations here at RSA. Can AI be of any help where authentication is concerned?
Sure, I think with any tech, you got to look at the bad side and the good side of it. So with AI, one of the issues with authentication is, as users, we were trained to look for those kind of phishing emails that might be slightly off or whatever. That's going to democratize that. The bad guys are going to have an advantage. They can use AI, ChatGPT and other things to create really well-crafted broad scope, email, like broad scope emails that they can just put out there, or even really targeted spear phishing kind of emails that won't have the telltale signs.
We're already seeing these, yes?
For sure. I mean, that's if I'm a bad guy, I want to save time just like everybody else, and I want to be more effective. So you can do that. So that's on the bad side of the equation. On the good side of the equation, we've talked a little bit about the whole phishing resistant MFA, like with FIDO passkeys, and that's certainly with Google support, Apple support, Microsoft, where we're going to have this idea of phishing resistance. But there's still a lot of old technologies out there that you really can't, you're just going to have to replace them over time. And I think where the AI piece of that can come into machine learning is you can really leverage those algorithms, for machine learning, to be able to spot anomalous kind of behavior as people do authentication transactions. So that's what we're going to see. It'll be part of the kit that you use to figure out, are you actually getting phished, particularly on the old technology where you can't, add a new technology that will fix that.
So I'm curious there, if it gets as granular as, say, like how fast I type my password, or if there's like really precise behavioral analytics that can also somehow factor in here. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, that's, some of the behavioral analytics have been around. I mean, the way we look at it, a lot of times behavioral analytics were used so that if your bank doesn't necessarily need to ask you again to do some sort of a step up or re-enter. Okay. It was trying to extend it, because password and the MFA and grab my phone and type in a code, and maybe it comes in email, maybe it doesn't, have to resend it. All that stuff was a pain. And so they use the behavioral stuff to really stretch it. If you can do phishing resistant and flip this thing, if you can say, listen, I get two strong factors. I get a cryptographic passkey and I get a biometric built into the device. I don't have to worry about those things in most situations. But again, there are technologies that you just can't fix, some of the old platforms, and so the behavioral analytics can fit in there.
Well, let's turn back to how we started this. What's different about zero trust authentication that's really going to make a difference here?
Yeah, so on the first step is you have to do the phishing resistant passwordless stuff. I mean, that's kind of table stakes. But you want to answer really two questions with an authentication technology. Who's coming into my environment, and are they actually authorized? If they're trying to gain access to a particular cloud resource. That's step one. Step two is, or thing two, is really, are they bringing a device to the party that I want to let have access? And by that I mean, has the device, does it have the appropriate set of security controls? Nobody can answer the question, is that device secure? It's an unanswerable thing. But I can answer the question of, are the kinds of controls that I wanted to have in place, are the PIN code turned on and my lock screen, and do I have encryption turned on, and is my firewall enabled, all at the time of authentication. So that's so it's the who and the what is coming into the network. Okay. Those are the two most important pieces. And then authentication historically has been kind of a once and done thing. I'm in, I got through the front door, I made it past the bouncer, and now I can do whatever I want. And the reality is kind of a prime thing or a prime pillar of zero trust is continue to verify. So this idea of continuous authentication, continually checking, for example, the device security posture, or even behavioral analytics, on the back end. Does this look like it's, based on keystrokes and things, does this still look like it's Patrick, or I need to re-authenticate him, or do I need to do something more drastic, like quarantine that device?
That's all very persuasive. Why is it still such a heavy lift for organizations to adopt zero trust?
Yeah, for a while, in zero trust writ large, because there isn't the magic zero trust product. It doesn't exist.
Okay.
We don't sell it. Nobody on the market does. So
it's a policy and a practice, not a product.
Yeah,
or a
strategy and an architecture. One of the main pillars of it, CISOs, like if you went back, 5-7 years ago, kind of this whole identity piece was a little bit of the red-headed stepchild, to be honest, in cybersecurity. I mean, it was an IT thing if you listen to most CISOs. Today, they'll all tell you. I mean, anybody that's really looked at this understands it's a fundamental component of zero trust strategy. If I can't decide who and what's coming into the environment, if I do everything else perfectly, network segmentation and SASE or ZTNA, if I do all those things perfect, but I can't regulate who and what's coming to the party, it doesn't matter. All those other controls won't matter.
Patrick, take us out with some advice for organizations who are trying to decide if zero trust is right for them or where they might begin.
Yeah, I think zero trust as a strategy, as a product. I mean, you can go kick a vendor in the shin if they told you they've got the magic zero trust product. Ourselves, if you happen by our booth and one of our guys tells you, that, then kick them in the shin too. But what you really need to think about is in the progression of it. Start with the identity piece. It is the most important piece. Again, if I can't control who or what, and a good place to start there is really start evaluating passwordless and phishing resistant MFA. So even if you don't add the device trust, at least start there. Make sure you know who's coming into the environment, whether that's your SaaS-based, cloud-based systems or on-prem systems.
Some great insights on identity management, authentication, and zero trust. Patrick, thanks for joining us on the News Desk today.
Thanks for having us.
We've been talking with Patrick McBride of Beyond Identity. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.